No joke, I think that was the hardest sermon to write since I've been here, because I could have done 4 sermons on Galatians 2, and so to cut it down to 4,000 words or whatever it ended up being was not easy. I was stressing yesterday.
Well, hello and welcome back to Midweek Mashup. I am here with our lead minister, Eric Hayes, back once again for our Galatians series. We started off with a message from Pastor Will the other week, and now we're continuing into Galatians 2, going chapter by chapter. And kind of came to a head this week with a conflict between Paul and Peter. What was the message kind of about this week?
Yeah, so Paul and Peter had a showdown, and Peter had been personally living not like a Jew but like a Gentile. He wasn't living by kosher food laws anymore. He was not requiring people that from Gentile backgrounds to be circumcised anymore. Essentially, God showed him that these folks don't need to become Jewish in order to become a part of my kingdom. And so Peter had been living like that, and then as soon as some people who had a more of a different context for doing ministry, where they were primarily working with Jewish people, he kind of shied away from that and started separating himself from the Gentiles. And Paul said, we're not going to do that. So they had this confrontation, and Paul is reminding the Galatians of what God had been doing, not just through Paul, but through Peter, to welcome people from all backgrounds and divisions into his kingdom. And so that's a big part of what the book of Galatians is about, is that the Galatians are trying to wrestle with this tension that they're facing. Do we make people become Jewish in order to become Christian, or can we welcome in Gentiles as they are?
Yeah, that's crazy and so confusing.
Yes.
Especially to have two of the prominent leaders of the church disagreeing on that. And so I really liked how you navigated that kind of tension between Paul and Peter, and we'll continue to see that a little bit in the coming weeks. But was there anything that you had to cut out from your message that you wish that you could have added in?
Yeah, I'm a little jealous of Pastor Ty, because he gets to dive a little more into a lot of the language that Paul uses throughout his different letters at different times, depending on, many of the letters he writes, there's some theological controversy going on. And this isn't the only time he's dealing with tension between Jewish and Gentile believers. And so I had a whole section I had to cut, because one, it would have been an hour-long sermon if I didn't, and two, Galatians 3 picks up really well where Galatians 2 left off, and so Pastor Ty is going to have an excellent opportunity to share some of this stuff. But essentially, there's a lot of talk of justice, righteousness, law, faith. Those are words that are just repeated over and over and over in this letter. And there's still, to this day, some of it's a different tension, but it's a similar kind of tension that Paul and Peter are facing. We have a tension in the Protestant church to some degree over what does Paul mean when he talks about we are saved by faith. And the problem comes essentially, this is an oversimplification, but essentially the problem comes during the Protestant Reformation. There is a laundry list of things you have to do as a Roman Catholic to earn forgiveness of sins. And Martin Luther and other reformers go, that's not in the Bible. We're saved by faith, right? And that's a good, strong pushback against the church. But the problem comes when Martin Luther's thinking is more shaped by a Christianity that's more Greek in nature than Jewish in nature. So that same tension between Gentile and Jewish Christianity exists in the Reformation. This is really nerdy stuff, so stick with me. There's a sense that faith, the word faith, pistis in the Greek New Testament, is belief, and that's it. That we have to believe, then we're saved. And then we're empowered to do good things. And there's truth to that, right? But a better definition of faith according to scriptures, according to how other writers of that era used that word, would be fidelity, faithfulness, or the word I like best, a New Testament scholar, Matthew Bates, says it's allegiance. I am allegiant to King Jesus, first and foremost. He is my everything, right? And that's really important when you look back to the original context to which Christianity comes into. It was illegal to be a Christian for a while. So to believe in Jesus was to risk your life. It wasn't just to say, yeah, I believe this, and I'll go on the rest of my day. It was to say, yeah, this is so important to me that I'm willing to risk everything. Like, that's true allegiance, right? And in fact, one of the reasons baptism was such a big deal, and one of the reasons that maybe we underestimate baptism as important today, to be baptized then was to publicly declare, I'm with Jesus. I'm allegiant to him. Now you have a target on your back, because it was not okay to be a Christian for the first couple hundred years of Christianity. And so why is that important? I just think it's really important. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who I mentioned in my sermon yesterday, he had this thing that he talked about: cheap grace versus costly grace. Cheap grace is this thing where we receive salvation from Jesus through belief, but it doesn't cost us anything. It doesn't change our life or our behavior. And he would say there's no salvation in that. There just isn't. If it's just about something I believe, cognitively, and it doesn't shape your life, I'm not sure that's real faith. He talked about costly grace. Jesus' grace cost Jesus everything. So for us to say, oh, thanks, Jesus, glad I get to spend eternity in heaven, and then go about our life as if nothing has changed, that's not not what the word faith in the Bible means. So to wrap a little bow on this, the Protestant Reformation was contextual theology. They're dealing with the background of the Roman Catholic Church, which is this worldwide powerful organization, and they're pushing against indulgences and these other things that you have to do to earn God's forgiveness. Or to get time off on your purgatory sentence or whatever. And so his reaction to that is, no, you just have to believe. Now, that's, again, an oversimplification of Martin Luther, because he would then call people toward holiness. Like, you've been saved, now live a holy life. But I think that word faith, we're saved by faith. We're saved by saying Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. The most important thing in my life. He is the king of my life. I think that is a better understanding of what the word faith means. So all that to say, when Paul is saying it's not by works of the law, he's specifically talking about the food laws. He's specifically talking about circumcision. He's specifically talking about like the outward appearance of some of the ceremonial Jewish stuff. He's not necessarily talking about living morally. No. If you're a Christian, you're required to love your neighbor. It's not optional. It's not get to it when you can. Like, you will be transformed. And so that sense of works versus faith, there is no competition. They do go hand in hand. You don't earn your salvation, but Paul in other places says, work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Like, don't take it lightly. There is something expected. When you've received that grace, there is something expected of you. So that was a long, rambling way to say, like, we can't oversimplify the gospel to say it's like, well, you just got to believe the right things. I don't think that's true. To truly proclaim Jesus as Lord of my life means it's going to change your life. It's going to change your priorities. It's going to change the way you behave.
Well, that's good. And it's so difficult sometimes to really understand that cultural context, because I'm sure for Martin Luther, someone who is moving away from the Catholic Church, it's like, okay, they're probably still going to retain some of that, putting things into practice, but what we need to focus on is the belief. And so that was really applicable for them in that era. But if we take that and fast forward to the present day, then it starts to get a little out of context.
Totally.
Kind of what I'm hearing is that really this faith piece is more like not so much like a I believe and this is something that I claim, but like it's more of a faithfulness. Right. Like it's like I believe and I'm doing things.
One other way to think about, again, not to pit them against each other, but one of the reasons this got so difficult for Western Christians, especially from a Gentile background, who are taking a Greek philosophy infused Christianity, is the Greek way of thinking was much more individualistic, and they would this whole idea that like Jesus died to save my soul so that when I die I can go and be with him in heaven. That's a Greek way of thinking of the gospel, but that's not actually what the Bible says. The Bible says that Jesus is going to return, and someday a new heaven and a new earth are going to be created. And so what happens here physically does matter, because our eternal state is in a physical, tangible heaven and earth, a redeemed creation, right? The Jewish way of thinking about it isn't Jesus saved my soul so that I can go to heaven when I die. It's more communal. It's who's included in the family, who's included in that kingdom that will reign forever. And so the way that they would think about living out their faith would have been less like, I just need to read my Bible and pray as an individual so that my soul is right with God. They would have thought more of an expression of faith in a communal way. How do we live out this faith and demonstrate God's eternal rule and reign here and now? And the beauty of it is that's actually what changed the world. That was the thing that made people go, whoa, there's something to this Jesus, because look at these people. And so I think it's really good for us to latch on to the fact that our faith isn't a new one. It's on the shoulders of the people of Israel. It's the Hebrew people, the Jewish people. They are in many ways, we have to remember that we're building upon a faith that existed ahead of time. Jesus has fulfilled that. And so it's good to reconnect with those roots and to see things that way, because the Bible was written exclusively by Jewish writers. Every single book of the Bible. Probably Hebrews. We don't know the author of Hebrews, but there's a reason it's called Hebrews. It was written by a Hebrew to the Hebrews, right? And so anyway, I'll have to say, like, that's this fascinating stuff that when you dig into Galatians that I get really excited about, and I can't fit it all into these sermons, but it helps us to see, I think, a little bit more clearly what Paul is trying to do in these letters.
As we're kind of wrapping up here, how do we make that shift kind of as Americans living in the 21st century?
Yeah, I think we need a both and approach, because the danger, if you swing too far the other way, is to say that the gospel isn't concerned with individuals' salvation. And it absolutely is. It's just not limited to that, right? It's about the rule and reign of Jesus as he's reconciling all things to himself. That includes me and you as individuals. But what is reconciliation other than making what has been broken whole, which is relationships? It's Jesus' message over and over again: love God, love each other. And so for us, I think part of the cure is bringing balance to the gospel, not letting the pendulum swing too far the other way and say that individuals don't matter, but bringing some balance to the way we talk about the gospel, and the way we present gospel to people who aren't currently a part of the faith, but we need to hear it preached to ourselves over and over again. I think the other way of doing that is to move away from seeing church through a consumer lens, and that's hard to do because many of us came to faith in churches that function on somewhat of a give and take consumer basis, right? The church wants to reach as many people as possible, and so they do attractive things. And I make the cynical way that I sometimes use is they produce religious goods and services that consumers then consume, and if you keep the people happy, they'll stick around, right? And man, when somebody wants to do things the way you like them, and it's comfortable for you, and you come back next week and you know it's going to be done the way that you like them, that's great. That's fun. Everybody likes that, right? But to see that even my interactions with church, they're not just about me and Jesus. When we take communion, it's not just about me and Jesus and his forgiveness of my sins. We're doing this around a table together, right? We're a part of something bigger than just what's going on with me and Jesus. And so I think that's a hard thing to do, to move from a consumer mentality of faith. For a pastor like me, it's hard for me to not just do things that I know will be popular, because then people are happy and they'll show up to the event or whatever, and instead think of what are our responsibilities to one another. It's why I always ask the question, who's discipling me and who am I discipling? If that's the driving question that we have as we approach church, it's how am I being poured into, but how am I giving myself away? If everybody approached church with that mentality, individuals would be enriched in their relationship with God. Individuals will get saved, but also there'll be this communal health that will be such a sign to the world of like, this is the power of God at work. Look at these people. Look at the way they love each other, care for each other. Look at the impact they make in their cities. Like that kind of thing will truly impact the world.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sitting at the table with us. And if you want to hear more from Pastor Eric, I'll go ahead and put a banner up with a link to that message on Galatians 2. Yeah. And I think we'll be hearing from you again at some point.
In a couple of weeks,
in a couple of weeks on another passage in Galatians. But thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next week.